Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGameLLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be learning how to play Chronicles of Druganor, Age of Darkness by Daniel Alves and Yuriko Kunha, published by Creative Game Studio. Now, important thing here, I'm not going to go over every single rule. Some minor things you're going to have to look up yourself, but my goal is to get you playing as soon as possible. I'll let you know when I'm going to gloss over things. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So in order to play Chronicles of Druganor, each player is going to need one of these trays. If you don't have these trays, don't worry about it. You'll need a health marker. If you don't have that, use the purple cube. And then you're also going to need a d20. Everybody's going to pick a character. I'm choosing Arcanos. You'll slot him into your board here and get his miniature. Awesome. The next thing you'll grab is his initiative card. You'll grab all the corresponding cubes that belong to him and put them in your active zone. The next thing you're going to do is set up his health. So he's got 8 health, so we put our little marker here to show that he's got 8 health. Next, you're going to look down here at what kind of hero proficiencies he has. Implement weapon, cloth armor. He's also got some others, but you're only going to get the armor and the weapon for your starting items. So we go ahead and slot those into the appropriate spots. Here's the weapon slot, and here's the armor slot. Sweet. The last thing that you're going to do is pick a role for your character. So I chose Defender. There's lots of different roles. These are going to affect your initiative, but you're only going to get the level 1 and level 2 abilities. These provide new actions for your character to take, as well as passive abilities. So I get plus 3 hit points. Sweet. All right, and you're ready to go. The next thing that you're going to do is actually start the adventure. So you're going to take a look at the book here, the adventure book, and look at the scenarios. We're going to do scenario 1, just so that there's as little spoilers as possible. There's some story. Read it. There's instructions on how to modify the game. In this case, there's no spawning. Cool. There's also descriptions on how the darkness behaves. It's standard, so this will be a great teaching video. And then there's actions for recalling. This is also standard. You'll see what that means. Then you'll do your one-shot adventure leveling if you're playing that mode, and then your adventure roll, what you're actually trying to do. Now let's take a look at how to actually set up the board. So first you're going to have to find this dungeon tray and the appropriate map tile, E4F, as well as the appropriate door for the adventure. Here's our door, here's our map tile, and here's our tray. We're going to set all that up. There's the tray, there's the map tile, and there's the door. The next thing that you're going to do is choose where your character begins. So all those stars, that's where you can start. So let's put Arcanos here. The last thing you're going to do is populate the board with monsters. We're playing one character, so we only do this top part. If you're playing with 2, you'd use this, 3, 4, and 5. Sometimes it'll tell you a specific character to use. You're going to want to use that exact card. So a Skeleton Archer Rookie, sounds good. Sometimes it'll say something like Gray. That means you're going to take all of the gray monsters and pick one randomly. That way your dungeon changes. But we're only playing with one, so we just need the Skeleton Archer. So we only need one Skeleton Archer. So we slap a base of any color on him, and you'll put him where he belongs. The last important thing that you got to do is set up the initiative track. This is the initiative track. It's got lots of different colors on here for all the different runes in the game. Now this is important because we've got the Skeleton Archer. He's got a green top arrow, which means he's going to go right here on the initiative track. That's when he acts. We also will go on this track. We're the Defender, so we actually are going to go in this Defender spot. So nice, we get to go before the Skeleton Archer. Seems pretty good. And you're ready to begin the game. So once again, the whole point of the game is to solve that adventure mission. So in this case, we're trying to help somebody, yes? So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing we do is we go to that initiative track, and we get to go first. You'll use this little marker to track that. So let's see what we can do on our turn. When it gets to your turn, you have lots of options, and those are going to be through your cubes. Each of your cube lets you access a matching color action. You also get to move 3 spaces on your turn, as well as take some minor actions. The minor actions are sort your own gear. So if I had an armor up here, I could switch it with one of mine. You could trade with somebody next to you. So if you're playing with multiple people, you could trade gear with them. The other thing you can do is you can interact with specific tokens on the board. These are called interact tokens, and we'll get to more of that later. They look like little magnifying glasses. And then you can also spend focus. If you have focus here, you could do one of these focus actions on the bottom. They're really powerful. You can do each of those things once per turn, but only one time. You can also do look for a treasure. So you have lots of different options with your bonus actions. But let's go to the main actions. First thing you can do is you can move. You can move up to 3 spaces. Movement in this game is in all directions. So if I wanted to move 3, I could go 1, 2, 3 if I wanted to. But I'm going to just go 1, 2, and you'll see why. The next action you can do is use cubes, and you always get to use at least 2 cubes on your turn. So if I want to do an action that's red, I spend a red cube. So let's go ahead and use this Firebolt's action. So first thing to know is that each of these actions has an associated range. If you use a blue action, its range is infinite. Same thing with green, infinite. Red means you have to be 1 area away, and you have to be at least 1 area away. You cannot be adjacent to the target. So if I used it here, an area is a large square. So right now, I'm good. I'm in range. I'm 1 square away from my target. If I was adjacent, though, I'd need to disengage from combat first by moving. That's why I didn't go close. If I was doing a melee attack, so the yellow, I'd have to be exactly adjacent to my target. So let's go ahead and continue my attack. I'm deciding to use this Firebolt attack. This means it uses a weapon, and I'll need to roll for it. So this time, it's going to use a ranged weapon, so I'm going to use my wooden staff. It does 3 damage, and I need to roll an 8 or higher to hit. Let's just say that I do roll. I get 2 separate attacks here. One is without any modifications to hit. The second one is without any either. Let's say I roll a 7. Unfortunately, I miss, I deal no damage. But now I can do my second attack, and I could choose different targets too. So say this time I roll an 18. Awesome, I hit. I beat that 8, so I just deal that much damage. If I use an attack like Burst in Flames, this gives +2 to hit, so I'd add +2 to my die after I rolled it, and I could do a status effect if I deal damage. If you don't deal damage, no status effects. Another cool thing, if you roll more than a 16, a lot of characters have passive abilities that give you awesome effects whenever you do that. Now keep in mind, you have to roll this naturally. You don't get it with modifiers like this +2 hit. In addition, if you roll that nice D20, you get to do double damage. Crazy. Alternatively, if you roll a 1 on this die, then you are going to instead get fatigued. When you take fatigue, you spend a cube. Fatigue. Ouch. So that's 1 less action cube for you. If you ever get to the point where you've taken turns and you've run out of action cubes, you're going to go ahead and take a curse cube. What this means is you'll take one of these black cubes, and this is called an unwilling recall action. So when you spent them naturally, you're going to put this on your board, and you'll take all of your cubes back. Now it's important that you put that black cube on one of your abilities. This basically means you're not allowed to use that ability for the rest of the game. So I can't use that arcane step anymore. With actions like cleanse, you can get rid of them, but it is going to clog up your board for a while. So you can clog up any of these abilities here or here. If it's a passive ability like this toughness though, I'm going to lose that 3 health I got until I cleanse it later. Whenever you deal damage to a creature, you'll mark it on here. Creatures have hit points based on this little bubble here. So he's got 6 health. So if I did deal 3 damage, I'd move from 6 down to 3. Let's go ahead and end my turn for now and see what happens if a monster would go. Monsters are very simple. They have really rudimentary AI. Each monster has a type, which shows how strong it is. Immunities, so they're immune to specific effects. This one can still get burnt. Their health, the type of attack they do, so he's a ranged character. Their movement, and their attack value. Minions don't roll, they just do their damage. This one has range 1, so just like me, it needs to be 1 area away. So he's in range. If a character was not in range, he's going to move until he is. Whenever they target, they're going to first try to target as many people as possible, including the strongest player. If they can't do that, they'll just target the strongest player. In order to do this, though, they'll move their movement. So he can move 4 spaces, but he just needs to move 1 just so that he disengages. If there's ever a tie, you can choose. And then he's going to attack. He's going to deal this much damage. Some characters have multi-shot, which means that they're going to attack 2 characters that are in range. So if there was another player playing and they were there, the Skeleton Archer would hit both of us. But there's not, so he's just going to deal 3 damage. If he does damage to us, we subtract it from our health, and we take the status condition, so we get poisoned, and that does bad stuff. There's lots of status conditions. You can look those up yourself. In response to attacks, you're allowed to take a single reaction. Reactions have these little lightning bolts. This defender is really cool, because you can spend any color cube to prevent 3 damage. If I use that on the skeleton's 3 attack, I don't get damage or poison. Cool. And that's how a monster reacts. So you're going to be doing this turn after turn after turn, until, hopefully, you've defeated these creatures, or you've decided to progress to the dungeon. If you ever do progress, you can instead, as a free action on your turn, one of those bonus actions, you can go ahead and take a look at the door. So this is the door. I'm going to open it. If you don't want to see it, skip it. This is what they look like. So dungeon trays that you need to get for the next room. You also have, just like when we started the scenario, things that you need to populate the board on. Some things also will have special rules. Make sure to read those because they will affect the scenario. They'll also make a lot of this other stuff make sense. So in this case, you would grab all these tiles and you would populate the board appropriately. In this case, this little arrow is where you're going to start putting tiles. So I would put this water here, something like this. You would put the actual tray here, and then the other tiles as you saw fit. Now, as this sees fit. And then you'll populate it with monsters as well. I'm not going to do this because I'm pretty sure you got it by now. The last important thing that we didn't talk about are your search tokens. If one of these is by you on your turn, you can spend an action to use the search token. You reduce the counter by 1, so if it's 1, it disappears. And then you're going to go into this really cool storybook that's going to have something that you're going to be finding. I'm going to show you one from one of the promos that gets shown a lot. It looks like this. So these have a passage, and whoever's looking is going to pick one. You'll go to the back of the adventure book, and it's going to tell you what happens. What happens when you look up a treasure? Once again, as a free action, if you're adjacent to a treasure, you can look at it. But first, it might be rigged. So you roll the trap die, bad stuff can happen. You'll take either 2 bloodied, 2 burn, or -2 movement. Lots of bad stuff on this thing. Or you'll get nothing. And then you get to draw a really cool item from this item deck. It could be a really awesome thing that gives you a busted bonus. You can use these at any time as a bonus action on your turn, even if you're engaged. Or it could be bad stuff. Ugh. So, open at your own risk. Now, during the game, a lot of times you'll be instructed to draw darkness. Now, darkness is going to come from this bag. In a standard game, you're going to have a card that'll tell you to draw darkness, but a lot of the times you'll be just drawing a single tile. This tile has a specific rune on it. You're going to put that rune on the initiative track with the matching color, but on the back is going to show the tile of darkness that you need to put on the board. The darkness tiles you'll take, and you'll spawn them in a darkness spawn zone. The spawn zones are different per game, but generally they're going to be these little tokens. So for example, if I was here, and I needed to spawn a darkness, I would place it so that this tile starts on that one, and it's going to do its best to try to reach me. Luckily, it can't, but dang, it's not going to try. So you'd put it like this. Sometimes you might get unlucky and get a shape that is going to hit you. When those shapes reach you, a couple things happen. The first thing is, you immediately take 2 damage. Whenever you end your turn or move into darkness, you take 2 damage. So you want to get out of there as soon as possible. The next thing that happens is whenever you attack, you get -2 to your hit rolls. That sucks. In addition, if a creature's in there, it gets +1 damage. And the damage and the reduction of roll happens if they're just adjacent to darkness as well. Same with you. If you're next to the darkness, you're going to get -2. And if they're next to the darkness, they get +1 to their damage. Pretty scary. So definitely don't let the darkness creep up on you, because it will kill you if you take too long. At the end of a scenario, generally, you're going to get some type of reward. So once again, I'm not going to really spoil it here on what's going to happen, but the box is going to look something like this. Rewards. So a lot of these rewards either are going to be looking through an item deck for a specific card. It's like this is the level 1 item deck. You can get trinkets or new items that you can bring with you, and those will fill up your slots. The other types of rewards you can get are feats and abilities, or skills, I should say. Skills and abilities. So let's go ahead and say that we were playing Maya. You could take all sorts of her abilities here. So you could take a new green ability, a red, or a yellow. When you take those, you get a cube that matches. So if I take this green one, I'll have extra actions to do green stuff. Pretty cool. The other thing that you can get access to are your class skills. And they look like this. So class skills are kind of a progression. So they're kind of like a tech tree. So if I get level 1, then I can get level 2, then I can get level 3. So they do accumulate, so you get lots of really cool effects. But once again, those are all dependent at the end of the scenario on what you get. You'll have this little sheet that's going to help you track things. You'll need one of these for each character that's playing the game. Sometimes you go to camp, you follow these steps. The last thing that I didn't touch on is when you get knocked out. When your character takes enough damage to knock it out, you're going to need to place one of these wound cubes on your board. Similarly to the curse cubes, it's going to block one of your actions, but this time it's permanent. Some cards can let you get rid of them, but probably not. Then you'll refill your health to full, and continue playing. If that ever happens a second time, you lose. The other way you lose the game is if you have 5 curse cubes and you need to put 1 more. Then you lose. So don't let that happen. Use your cleanse action, heal yourself, protect your friends. Don't be dumb. You'll be just fine. And that's how you play Chronicles of Druganor. If you have any questions about what you saw here or anything specific to the rules, please let me know. But I do think that this is probably a great video to get you jumping in and get started. Please let me know if you have any other questions or any specifics or anything you'd like to see in the future. This channel mainly focuses on organizing videos. It focuses on top 10s, as well as collaboration with other content creators. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. It really makes a difference. The sooner we get up, the cooler things that we can do, such as live plays, live streams, all sorts of that stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong.